Welcome back to the channel. My name is Steve, and today we're going to talk about why I'm excited to get the Helix Stadium. Okay, so unless you've been living under a rock, if you're a guitar player, you have heard the news. Line 6 announced the new Helix Stadium family of products. The internet just blew up over it. They announced it at the 10-year anniversary party for the Helix. There's been so many interviews with Line 6 folks. They had a whole live stream on it. Their website now is full of all kinds of information. YouTubers have gone bonkers covering all the features and things like that. But what I've been seeing lately, and I've watched a ton of it, trust me, but I have seen a lot of videos lately on people why I'm not getting a Helix Stadium. And I mean, I guess it's good to hear that perspective as well, but I thought it'd be good to put out a video of somebody that is excited about getting one. I have one on pre-order, and I'm not going to use all the new features, but I feel like the reasons I have for getting it are enough to justify getting it. So let's get into it. First of all, I am unapologetically a Line 6 fanboy. Anybody that knows me knows this. It started all back in the mid-2000s at a church I was playing at. There were these young guys that were playing guitar, and they got their hands on this Line 6 stuff, and I was sold. It was the Pod XT Live, if you remember that. And then they came out with the Pod X3 Live, so I had to get that. Then they came out with the HD 500. HD, oh my gosh, that's incredible. So I had to get that. And then they came out with the HD 500X, and I got that because it had a little more horsepower, apparently. And then they came out with the Helix Floor in 2015. I did not get my Helix Floor in 2015. That was a big jump. Most of the products prior to that were like $400 or $500. Jumping up to $1,500 for me was big. That was a huge step. So I didn't buy my Helix Floor until November 2016. So it had been out for just over a year when I got it. And I have had it ever since. I've also had a bunch of other Line 6 gear. I've had a bunch of the Variax guitars. I've had a bunch of their wireless systems. I still have one of their FR speakers, smart speaker. Yeah, I'm a fanboy. I really bought into the whole Line 6 philosophy. But I will tell you, I'm excited to think about this new platform in the next decade of Line 6. I don't think they even thought about this back in 2015, that the Helix was going to spawn an entire family of products, let alone that they were going to continue creating more amp, cab, and effects models and keeping this box competitive over the decade from 2015 to 2025. It's been amazing what's happened. So now they've had a lot of years to think about this next platform. The fact that they're building this thing now, knowing that they can really build a family of products, the sky's the limit with this new hardware that they have, right? When you look at the family of products that just has, spawned from 2015, after the Helix Floor, they came out with the Helix Rack, the Helix LT, the HX FX, the HX Stomp, the HX Stomp XL, the HX1, the Pod Go, the Pod Express, and Helix native software for computers. I mean, that's amazing. And the fact that they're all running like basically the same HX engine and can get the same sounds. Let's talk about how much they've improved just on the OG Helix since 2015. When it first came out, it had 46 amps, 30 cabs, and I think 76 effects. In the latest firmware update, 3.80, that came out in November 2024, they now have over 100 amp and cab models and more than 241 effects. So from 76 effects to over 241. Over the years that I've had mine, every time they do a firmware update, it's like Christmas morning. It's like getting a bunch of new things to play with and incorporate into our sounds and our playing styles. The fact that we have this new platform now for the next 10 years. That just excites me a lot, right? So let's get into the actual reasons, some of the features and benefits that I'm excited about. I'll mention the ones that I'm probably not that excited about. First of all, the ones I'm excited about is it's smaller and it's lighter. There's two versions now you've probably seen. So there's the Helix Stadium. It does not have an expression pedal. It's still bigger than the Quad Cortex, but it's pretty small. Then you have the Stadium XL, which has the volume pedal, some additional I/O, and scribble strips. So for my playing style, I need a volume pedal. When I play in churches, I do swells and different ambient things that you really need a volume pedal, right? And if I got the Stadium without the volume pedal, I'd still have to get an expression pedal and hook up to it. So why not just get it in the unit already, right? And after having a Helix Floor for the last 9 years, I love my scribble strips. I want to know for every preset or patch that I'm on, what is that button doing? Because it can change, right, between patches and things like, what is that button? And I just love scribble strips. So don't want to give that up. The additional I/O, I mean, I may not use it, but certainly the volume pedal and the scribble strips is big for me. And I'm so excited that's in a smaller form factor. I'll tell you, after I got my Helix Floor, later on, my wife plays guitar, my oldest son plays guitar. They both got Helix Floors as well. I think we bought those used. My wife got a Helix Floor, oldest son got a Helix Floor, and eventually they got tired of lugging them around. So my wife downgraded to a Pod Go because she says, I don't need all the sounds. I just need some good sounds, but I don't need the patches that I have that have 4 reverbs and 3 delays and 3 overdrive pedals. And she needs a few basic sounds. And same with my son. He plays in worship, but he also has a band, and the stuff he needs, he doesn't need a ton of effects. He downgraded to a Stomp XL. Between the two of them, they used to have Helix Floors, but really for size reasons, they went ahead and got something smaller. For me, I actually need the horsepower that the Helix Floor has. For some of these patches, like I said, that's just like DSP intensive. Some of the smaller Line 6 offerings in this family, like the Pod Go and the HX Stomp, have half the DSP. So you can't put as many blocks in there and things like that. One of the things for me, though, is not only is the Helix Floor really big, but I had this great idea to put it in a flight case and mount some other pedals in there. This is a picture of my Helix. I have it in a flight case, and I have an extra expression pedal, and I have a Digitech drop pedal, and I have a Shure wireless in there. I used to have some Line 6 wireless, but on our stages now, there's a lot of wireless traffic going on, and I was getting dropouts. So I've switched to the Shure, and it's been fantastic. Highly recommend. Maybe I'll do a video someday on the Shure wireless unit. It's a little more expensive, but it's worth it. I've got this thing I haul around now. You can see right there, I have a mount that I can put a mic stand into. Because this big case, it was hard to actually get a normal tripod mic stand anywhere near me. I took the legs off a mic stand and I just drop it right in there and tighten it down. So I haul this thing around. I mean, it's heavy. I had the option when I bought the flight case years ago that I could have got wheels and a suitcase handle, but it was an extra $40. And me being all frugal, I said, nah, I don't need that. It's fine. Dumb. I wish I would have spent the extra $40 on that. So I haul this thing around to every gig, to every church service, to every practice. Our studio here at our house is above a garage, so it's on a second floor. I haul this thing up and down steps. After 9 years, I'm getting really tired of it. I feel like every year it gets heavier. If you look at this diagram here, you can see this is the difference in size between the Helix Floor, the Helix LT, the Helix Stadium XL, and the Helix Stadium. Going from a Helix Floor to a Helix Stadium XL, like I am, you can see it's about 2.5 inches shorter and almost 2 inches in depth smaller. And plus it's lighter. This to me is just a huge benefit. Very excited about that. So as I talked about my wife going to the Pod Go and my son going to the HX Stomp, I have to be honest with you and tell you that over the last couple of years, I did buy another product from Line 6. I bought the Pod Express. I had this fun pedal board project I was working on. I'm a big Eddie Van Halen fan, as you can see. And I wanted a small pedal that did amp models and some effects. And the Pod Express is an amazing little box. Now, this does not replace my Helix in any way, but it's just been fun. The Pod Express, if I was starting out on guitar, I mean, for $180, this little box with all the amp models and the effects that are in it, it's incredible. I remember when I first started playing guitar, if I would have had something like that, I can't tell you how excited I would have been. I mean, I had my first small PV practice amp that I got. My first phaser pedal was from Sears. Some of you don't even know what Sears is. It was a big store at one point. It does not exist anymore. But the fact that this Pod Express does so many effects and amp models all in a one little package for $180, it's amazing what Line 6 has done. So, did not replace my Helix Floor, but it's a great little product. Okay, what's the next feature I'm excited about? I am excited about the touchscreen, okay? Everything these days is a touchscreen. Refrigerators have a touchscreen on them. I think it makes sense that Line 6 put a touchscreen on this. From the people that have actually touched it, they've said it's actually a really good touchscreen because, not all touchscreens are created equal. They've done some really creative things with this touchscreen where they've put this focus view, which will allow you to change different contextual parameters, sort of in layman's terms, right? So I never grew up around a bunch of amps where I was always tweaking the bias and the sag and there's all these like amp parameters that I have no idea what they mean, right? In this focus view, you're going to be able to move your finger around on the touchscreen and go from, say, squishy to tight. I know as a guitar player what that means. I know what squishy means and I know what tight means. I don't know all the parameters that make that happen all the time, right? And I'm always dinking around with things. So that focus view is a great use of the touchscreen. Also EQs, just to be able to use your finger on an EQ curve, all that kind of stuff. Another cool feature that's in there as part of the touchscreen is the search function. So you can search on amps or effects or preset names even, and it'll bring up the list. And then you can scroll through different things with your finger. Kind of cool. We're used to scrolling, right? And the best part, I think, when they did this touchscreen, they kept all the knobs. They kept the rotary encoders. They didn't get rid of them. So you can still do things with knobs. Sometimes knobs are nice. If it was just a touchscreen, there's some units out there that are just touchscreen, and I think it'd be nice to have some knobs. So it's great. Line 6 kept the knobs, right? Next up for me that I'm excited about is the new Agoura amp modeling. They went back to the shop and they basically started from scratch and have a new way of doing modeling. It's not just the old models that are on steroids. This is a new way of modeling things down to a component level. It's supposed to give much more accurate amp and effect models. I'm excited about that, right? We all are as guitar players. If you're playing a model of a tube amp, you want it as close as you can to that, right? And we've been progressing over the years. All these companies are striving for that. And it's great that Line 6 is making another leap in that. What's interesting that they talked about is some of these amps that people have in their head, like they know a certain player that used that amp on that song and they love how it sounds. There's been so much processed in the studio and things like that. What they're hearing from that amp is not exactly how that amp sounds. If they were in that room with that amp, they'd be like, wait, what? So Line 6, as they get more accurate amp models, knowing that there's a lot of people out there that have never even touched some of this gear, Line 6 has put something in called the hype control knob, which helps you dial in the sound in your head quicker. So that's pretty neat. Another feature I'm super excited about is more DSP. If you remember back to my Helix case and I have the Digitech drop pedal in there, there is a feature in the Helix today called Poly Capo, and it does something similar to the Digitech drop pedal. The problem is it takes up a lot of DSP. And as I mentioned, some of my presets use lots and lots of reverb and delays. And so they don't have a lot of extra DSP available to use poly capo. So I use the Digitech drop pedal when I need to drop a half step or a whole step or something like that. I would love to leave the Digitech drop pedal at home and use the poly capo if that increased DSP allows me to do so. I think that's great. So I'm excited about more DSP. I'm also excited about the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity. Using cables to hook up to your computer, now you can just use the Wi-Fi to connect to your home network, or if you're at a venue and you need to do some kind of update or something. Bluetooth, being able to connect with your phone. I'm sure this is just going to lay the groundwork for all kinds of different features and benefits that they're going to be able to incorporate over the next decade. But probably the biggest selling point, and what would have been a deal breaker for me had they not done this, is the backwards compatibility with the Helix family of products. So over the years, I have built, purchased, acquired many, many, many Helix presets. And these are going to just plug right in and run on the Stadium. That's so fantastic. I'm excited about the Agoura amp models, but I am so glad that on day one, I can just load in all of my previous patches and they're just going to run. So that would have been a big deal breaker for me, I think, if I would have had to start over from scratch. There are some new features that I probably won't use. Let's talk about Showcase. This is a feature where it's almost like you have Ableton inside your Helix now. You can bring in an MP3 and you can have it split into stems. Let's say you bring in a Journey song. You bring in Journey, you split it into stems, and you get to mute Neil Sean, and you get to play the guitar with Journey. You get to dial in your sounds and see how they sit in the mix. I think that's pretty cool. Now, the other capabilities of Showcase where you can run things over MIDI, you could actually control the whole light show of your band if you want. Like some of that stuff I'm not going to use. But there are features within Showcase that I'm pretty excited about. There's another new feature called Proxy, which is Line 6's version of Capture. There's other modelers out there today that do Capture. The Quad Cortex does Capture, or Fractal does Capture. This is where you can take amps and effects and actually capture them into a profile. That's not something that I would do. I don't have a bunch of vintage amps sitting around that I want to capture. So that's a feature I'm probably not going to use. But who knows, maybe 5 years from now I will. And then all the extra I/O that's in there, I don't know if I'm going to use that, at least not right now. I will tell you though that I do need XLR outs. My wife and son, when they went to the Podgo and the Stomp XL, they have to use DI boxes now pretty much everywhere they go. Every venue, every church, you need DI boxes to convert and get plugged into the Snake. I just want that built in, right? So XLR outs, very important to me. All the other I/O, probably not that important. All right, so let's talk about the one thing that most people seem to complain about when it comes to the Helix Stadium, and that is the cost. First, before we do that, we need to jump back to summer of 2015. When the Helix launched, it was $14.99. If you go to Google and find yourself an inflation calculator and you plug in $1,500 in the summer of 2015 and say, what is that equivalent to in 2025? It comes out to $2,028. The Helix Stadium is $1,799 and the Stadium XL is $2,199. So the $2,028, that's right in the middle of the two stadiums. So to me, a big part of the price is inflation. I think from a cost standpoint, you have to remind yourself that a decade has gone by. Everything that you buy these days is more expensive than it was in 2015, right? So how do I look at gear in terms of an investment? I bought my Helix Floor in November of 2016. As I said, when it first came out, $1,500, a lot of money. So a little after a year after it had been out, that's when I did it. So this November, I'll have had mine for 9 years, probably right around the time that I'm getting my Stadium. My band that I'm in, we play probably 35 times a year. I play about 45 Sundays a year at church on either guitar or bass. Now, there are other Sundays that I do play drums occasionally, but for the most part, guitar or bass. And then I use it in the studio here for myself and then other people that come in and record. So let's say 30 sessions a year, because if it's a guitar player or bass player, I plug them in and they love how it sounds and they're like, yeah, let's go with that. Most of the time we're using the Helix here in my studio. Also practices, whether it's church practices or my band practices. If you add all these up, and I did over the last 9 years, it came to 1,503 times that I've used the Helix in a setting with other people. This is not just me sitting here by myself, playing guitar, messing around with it. This is in actual settings with other people or performing or practicing 1,503 times. So the $1,500, it's less than $1 per use, whether I'm playing at a gig or a church service or at a practice. And I guarantee you, every one of those gigs, church services, and practices, I either bought a coffee, a soda, or an energy drink that all cost more than $1. So the fact that I can have a professional piece of gear that the company has kept up to date through firmware updates for 9 years and has been indispensable for me, I think that's amazing. So that's definitely one way to evaluate the gear that you buy and whether it was a good investment or not. There are definitely pieces of music gear that I've bought and didn't use nearly as much as I thought I was going to. And then after it sits around for a while, you think, oh, should I sell that? But chances are you're not going to make your money back. You're going to sell it for less than you bought it for. And then if you sell it on a platform like Reverb, you're paying fees and shipping costs and things like that. So there are certainly pieces of gear that I've bought that were, in hindsight, bad investments. Maybe I should do a video someday on those. When I look at the Helix that I bought 9 years ago, I think it's probably been the best investment for me as a guitar player. It's been fantastic for me. That's the reasons why I'm excited about the Helix Stadium. So if you like this, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Love to have you be part of the channel here. But as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.